Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to begin, as usual, by thanking you for taking the time to listen to what we have to say, both in this live version and those of you who find it online later. We like to do these once a month and just share tools with people, and they're specific to the hearing aid business that we've made a career out of, and everybody that's on the phone has probably made a career out of it as well. It's important to know that they're not just principles for the hearing aid business, although that is our specialty. They're really principles for any business. But as we have this discussion today, I want to remind everybody that we will take questions at the end. If you have questions, if you would type them in the chat bar, that would be great, and we will aggregate those at the end and answer them as necessary. And if there's not any questions, that's okay too. But if you're prompted to ask a question, we certainly would like to answer that. So I'd like to begin by introducing myself and my guest today. I'm Steve Richards. He's Cade Simpson. Both of us come from hearing aid families, if you will. I had a nearly 30-year career at Starkey, and Cade, really most of his adult life has been dispensing hearing aids and running clinics. Cade, can you give us a little bit more of your background? And also, you are the chief decision maker at Acuity Hearing as well. Tell us a little bit more.
When you say that, Steve, can you hear me okay? Just making sure.
I can.
When you say that, Steve, 30-year career, and it's like I'm not old by any means. I don't identify as that, of course, but it's like as the years go by, I have stories that are 20 and 20 plus and 30 years old, Anyway, I'm getting closer to the technically 30-year part of my career than the start of it. Anyway, I was brought into the industry through my uncles who have operated clinics for a long time in East Texas, and I was a clinician for a number of years. And then I joined the New Sound Hearing Aid Centers group that was owned and ran by Randy Schonborn, who of course is part of Acuity today, and really grew up through the ranks there. And I like describing it as I have a PhD in Randy Schonborn, how to operate hearing aid clinics. And, so I was running the clinics for Randy, and then we merged with Starkey, and we ran all of the All-American clinics that are known as AOC or Audubell Clinic owned, ACO, Audubell Clinic owned, Starkey Hear Care clinics. And anyway, 6 years ago, we started doing what we're doing now, helping small, medium-sized business owners in the hearing aid audiology world. And that's the quick of it, Steve.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us today. I know you've been in meetings all day. One of our big things at Acuity is meeting rhythm, and this is one of those meetings. And I really appreciate your time. I know it's precious. I thought of this topic. We have a list of topics that we think about all the time, and I felt it appropriate. I recently was on vacation, and it occurred to me that a lot of people in our business, Cade, they can't take vacation. And there's no shame in that, because we have a lot of people that start businesses. Even Bill Austin once told me, when he had at the time, he told me this, it was probably a $400 million company. And he said, Starkey is my prison. And that really kind of struck me because he had a business that didn't function when he was away from it. Now, since that time, he's built it and he's scaled it, and he's got an incredible executive team that actually runs his business for him. But there was a time when I first started working for him, and Randy started working for him, he was in charge of everything soup to nuts. And it's interesting to me that here's one of the wealthier guys in our industry describing his fabulously successful company as a prison. And so it got me to thinking, do you own a business, or do you just have a job? And and it reminds me of one of my favorite books that I read early on when I started working with clinic owners was the E-Myth. And why do we have an industry full of people who suffer from what the E-Myth describes as an entrepreneurial seizure? And it's really because, people start in this business as caregivers and they think, well, I can go be a caregiver on my own, um, and see patients and just do a wonderful job. And this, shares a story of a baker, a pie maker who makes really good pies, but their business doesn't thrive if they're not making pies. And so I got to thinking, can you step away from your clinic, um, and have it do well? I actually have a good friend who took a sabbatical and didn't go into his business for a year, and it grew. That's really
Mhm.
hard to do, and that's what we've seen in our industry. Cade, will you share some of your perspectives on the same?
Yeah, I love this topic. This might be at the center of why Acuity is a good group to hang out with. I don't, you know, I'll try to explain what I mean by that. You have a business owner and they think, oh, what I need is marketing, or what I need is recruiting, or what I need is, some function. And what it really is at the core, they're experiencing that entrepreneurial seizure that you're talking about. They're feeling stuck and they can't quite put a pin on what's going on or why they've gotten stuck, why they're at a plateau. And so they're looking for some kind of shiny object maybe that's going to be the silver bullet that fixes it. And so that, by the way, no one is immune to it. Not me, not Steve, not Randy. It's like been through it, going through it, gonna
Been
go
there,
through
done
it.
that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah. T-shirt, coffee mug, hat. You
Yeah.
got all the merch to go along with it. Which though it's like that has given us real life experience on how to break through it, which of course we're going to talk about here in a minute. But yeah, so we show up and you get to know a business owner and you find they are stuck. They feel imprisoned. That's a great story about Bill and Starkey. Yeah, so a business owner of any size, they feel stuck. How do I get through? I'm on the phone or in the email. I got patients to see. I'm working weekends. I'm working nights and all this, and they just can't break through, and they can't see where it gets any better. And this happens again and again and again. And I just would bet that people on the call listening live and that'll be watching off the website later, they'll be nodding along saying, yeah, I've been through that, or I'm going through that. So just know that you're certainly not alone. It happens. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to break free and get back on track to get out of that entrepreneurial seizure.
How do you, let's focus on this seizure for a minute. What are some of the characteristics of people that you see that are in the middle of this? Um, they're in a prison. What are some of the things um, that are the characteristics of somebody who's really doesn't have a job, or doesn't have a business, but they have a job? I love the line in the E-Myth where it says, uh, if you have a job and you work for yourself, then you're probably working for a lunatic sometimes. What are some of the things that people can just kind of self-assess in their world to see if they have a job or if they have a business?
Yeah. One area would be if we were talking and quizzing you, the business owner, and the business owner is saying the business can't survive without me doing insert job here. In our world, maybe it quite often is, the business can't survive without me seeing patients. The business can't survive without me doing the marketing. The business can't survive without me, again, insert whatever the job is right there. If you say it that way or think about it that way, Jeff Foxworthy, here's your sign. Here's your sign. You're in an entrepreneurial seizure. Another area of that would be that the business, this one's a little more quiet, a little more subtle. The business is not growing. The business has stalled out in revenue, if not profits, and it's not growing. It's grown from something to where you started to where you are, and it's no longer growing anymore. Businesses where the owner is not in an entrepreneurial seizure, they will continue to grow. Here's another one, Steve. Here's a third one. I'll leave it at a 3 pitch here. The third would be that it's related to what I just said, but you get paid as an employee and not as an owner. There's no dividends, there's no profits left over. It's just running on fumes. And even your employee pay might not be what it should be. It's not uncommon to come into a business and the owner is running themselves ragged. I have to do this or else, like I said, is number one. The business won't run without me doing whatever the job is. And yet, even in that role, they're not paying themselves the fair wage that someone in that role would be paid if they just hired an employee. So there's my three perspectives on how you might self-diagnose.
I like that. And, kind of a follow-up question. I've got a couple of things I want to get out there too. And then, but at the end of this will be a question of what does it do to the value of somebody's business? We have these two different scenarios. So we'll get to that, but just kind of dovetailing what you want to say. I want to first say to everybody looking at this now and in the future, if what you want is a single clinic or 2 clinics, and you are the provider, and you just want to do that until you sell your patient files or you transfer it to, somebody in your family to own it and operate it. We're not casting shade on that model at all. There's something to be said for that. I recently was with somebody in Las Vegas, and he told me, I'm going into the hearing aid business, and it's either 2 clinics or 20. And the reason is, at 2 clinics, you can run them yourself and you can build a good life for yourself. At 20 clinics, you've got to be up and above the business. You can't be down in the weeds. So it's kind of a choice of what you want to be. And I just want everybody to understand that we're not throwing shade on the mom and pop deal. But we're saying if what you want to do is scale your business, because there's also been in my career a lot of people that had businesses that if they just scaled them and put the infrastructure in place, they didn't even need to sell them at the end of their career. They've created a machine that works without them, and it can continue to pay them. And as I've been working with Acuity, we've met with people and they think that their business, here's everything. Come look at what we're doing. We're very profitable. And then, like you said, they're not very profitable because they're not paying themselves as a clinician. They're just taking money out as an owner. And we believe that a clinician should be able to make a certain amount of pay, and the owner should be able to have enough left over at the end to A, take money for their investment as an owner, and B, reinvest in the business to help grow it and sustain it. And then go ahead.
Well, I just want to reiterate the point that you're making, that what we're talking about today applies to any size business. It's kind of like scaling up. You read it, and Scaling Up's our business Bible, and you read it and it sounds like it's talking about big companies only. And you might say, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. No. We have to say things we can only say things one way. It's very, very, very important that it doesn't matter what size your business is. These principles apply. You can be in a seizure and your clinic is, you have one clinic and you do a $500,000 a year. You could be in a seizure and you have 100 clinics and you do 50 million a year. It doesn't matter. So this applies to every size business. And that'd be add that as the fourth pitch to how do you know you're in a seizure? You deny it.
Yeah, there's another situation that we run into when we talk to people too, and it's not just that we mentioned that they might not be paying themselves as a clinician. We also might have owners out there that do pay themselves as a clinician and pay a clinician. And then they find out that their business really isn't scalable in that way too, because once you stop having double-digit growth, it's really easy to point out flaws in your business model. And there's a lot of people out there that once that happened, they realize, oh my goodness, my model's not scalable. It's not profitable. So Cade, these are the 5 areas that I call the 5 areas of influence with Acuity. And can you please walk us through? We talk a lot at Acuity about taking off your clinician hat or your day-to-day hat and start putting on your strategy hat. Can you tell us really about this slide you see on the screen?
Yeah. So we're looking at it's kind of a Venn diagram or an org chart, however you want to describe it. And we're starting to get really to the solution of breaking out of the entrepreneurial seizure. But before we really get into those details, let's orient with this. This is the functional organization structure that we use, apply, and teach. So I'm going to start with the 4 corner quadrants. You've got administration, financial control, marketing, and patient care. And then you've got leadership in the middle. And so having an org structure like this, it's answering a question of who does what, and having clearly defined processes that belong within each function. Then it cascades down to KPIs that measure those functions. And now you know what your company does, the metrics that it should get, benchmarks it should receive as far as performance, and who is responsible for each of those functions. In the center is leadership. You have a chief officer, if you will, again, just using that term loosely, in each of the functions, and everything is connected. It's represented that way in this visual, that everything is connected. The administration team has its leading processes and things that it executes on, but it also has to work in conjunction with patient care, marketing, financial control. It's like a car. Your vehicle has a fuel system, an electrical system, a drivetrain system, a braking system. All of those systems are independent in many, many ways and rely on themselves to execute what they're designed to do. But at the same time, they have to work together. Your fuel system and electrical system have to work together in order to ignite the engine so that the car will move down the road, which connects to the drivetrain, all of that kind of stuff. So this is the same thing. It's organizing the systems of your business. And this is a good starting point in being able to certainly diagnose if you're currently operating and you're feeling stuck. This would be a way to diagnose and start to organize your garage, if you will, and know where your tools are and what's doing what and what kind of performance we're getting, so that we can get closer to what do we actually need to do in order to break out of that entrepreneurial seizure.
I love this diagram. It starts getting me to think of, how I can compartmentalize all of the important things, because this can be overwhelming to even the best business person, especially when you consider that each one of these 5 areas, we have drill downs to interconnected proprietary resources that we have at Acuity Hearing. So there is some substance, just so you know, when you drill down in each one of these topics. We've outlined from beginning to end the things that we feel, and we've documented strategies to improve on all of these things. And each one of these bullet points, you can drill down from there, and there's training videos and papers and really flow charts of everything that you want to do. And so that's kind of the big picture of here's what Acuity is focused on. We're focused on everything regarding how to run a successful hearing clinic or how to run many successful hearing clinics, and it's all documented for you. But rather than go through all that today, because we call it a 7-year march. Kate, can you tell me or share a few things with me specifically that we use to identify the lowest hanging fruit in what we like to do when we first begin working with people is we like to sit with them for a day and a half and get access to their patient base and a high level understanding of their P&L. And then we sit with them. First, we break bread and have dinner. And then the next day, we just focus on here's what Acuity does. And here is what we see in our initial analysis of your business. Cade, can you share with us some of the tools that we use in the beginning like that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna start by referencing back really to the Venn diagram, the quadrants of organizational health. That in a way represents your business's strategy. That's a good place to start, by the way, is where is your company going? You know, whenever that plateau happens with the entrepreneurial seizure and you're not growing and you're just working in the weeds and treading water, quite often the business has done one of two things: lost line of sight of where it's going. What's the vision? What's the where's the dream? What's the big picture, the BHAG goal for this? Or it never had one. We just kind of were winging it, and a little bit of growth happened, some success happened, and then it got to a point where like, oh man, I've actually got to work hard at this, but we don't have a line of sight that keeps us moving forward. And so having a vision and some sort of documented, here's where we're going, here's what's important, that helps. So I'll simplify and try to give more detail. You could have a goal. Let's say, for example, you're a $2 million business. Again, insert whatever number you want. Your $2 million business, though, and you're stalled out. Okay, we're going to set a goal that we want to get to 5 million or 10 million. Maybe you measure it in customers. We currently have 700 customers that see us every year, and we want to get to 2,500. It could be anything like that, some sort of goal that is kind of far away. It's at least 5 years away, if not 10 years away. It's something that's like, whew, that gives us, that's not just the next shot in your round of golf. It's finishing the tournament 4 days later. So now that I'll stay on that analogy, say a game of golf. If your goal, if your vision is to play 4 rounds in a significant tournament, let's call that a lot, and it's a lot of holes of golf, 72 holes of golf, and a lot of shots along the way. Well, in order to get to the end and have a certain score, what do we need to do today? What does our next shot need to be? And that gives better clarity on what to do and how to behave than just walking up and winging it, having no reference of what the next shot or the next shot might be. So often in golf, your shot that you're taking right now needs to set up your next shot. But if you just walk up and hit it, that is, if you're following me, that's kind of an entrepreneurial seizure. That's a golf seizure. You're not going to score well. You're not going to enjoy it. You're just going to be hacking it all over the place. And that's not what we want to do. So add this to the list of symptoms. The owner, the manager, the supervisor becomes very emotional about what's going on. There's a lot of emotion driving decisions or indecisions. Therefore, a good way to help break out of an entrepreneurial seizure is to use metrics. So that's going to be mostly what I show today is having metrics be gauges for us to break us out of the entrepreneurial seizure, because the metrics don't have emotions like we do. They don't get upset. They just are what they are. So I'm going to share these metric tools. I'm going to open my screen up here. Tell me when you see my screen, if you would, Steve.
Well, I think I have to say, oh, look at that.
See my screen?
I don't see your screen. I see, there, now I do.
Yeah. Well, I was sharing the meeting, so it probably just looked like your screen. Okay, so before I tell you what this report is, which we're not going to spend all day analyzing this report, it's more of a point of reference. But here's another metaphor back to, a car. Metrics in a car is your dashboard. It's the temperature gauge of your engine. It's your oil pressure. It's how much your fuel economy, your RPMs, your miles per hour, any of that. All of those are gauges. That's all data. You can think you're going fast. You can think your car's running well, but what does the metrics actually say? And that gives you an objective viewpoint of where your business actually is. And it allows you to detach, to come back from that, in the weeds view up to the 10,000, 30,000 foot view, and actually look at it and say, okay, here's the truth. Here's the actual truth. If you yourself are a clinician, for example, you might say, well, I'm great. I close everybody. Well, let's see what the report says, because it's not going to lie to us. So I'm going to share 3 tools, Steve, that I could use on any clinic, any business, and make a whole lot of good assessment. And I would have action items, and I would know, okay, I've got this or this or this to work on. This is a report that is custom to Acuity. Our Acuity members have access to this report. We build it out for them, and it's much more than what you would get out of your typical, cycle or blueprint or Counselor EMR system. We've got a number of metrics here, but ultimately what we're doing is measuring, in the simplest way, we're measuring how many appointments we had in a given time frame, how many transactions how many people moved to a yes decision for better treatment for themselves. And then there are some supporting percentages along the way that express quality of work, as well as our revenues and payments for the day. This report is many, many sheets. I said just a second ago, for instance, it tells you how many appointments you had within a given time frame. This is how many appointments our clinics, this is a real report from this morning, had yesterday. In the clinics that Acuity owns, we have ownership of a number of clinics you can see here. We saw 109 people. And it breaks down per clinician, per clinic, per territory. But if I go to the next page, here's how many people we've seen this week, 472. I'm down here in the total, week to day total at the bottom. Hopefully you can see that I've got it highlighted. 472. I'm going to keep going. Month to date, 1,834. I'm going to keep going. Quarter to date, year to date. And then I'm going to come down here. We have these trackers where we set budgets and goals for our clinics at the beginning of the year based on past trends, expected changes in our process, personnel, things like that. And so we set different goals. And down here, this tracker gives us an indication of whether we are ahead, on track, or behind the goal for that time period. We got a couple of clinics that are behind. We have a couple of clinics that are far, far ahead. And then we got many clinics that are right on their target for the year. And these metrics, I'm able to look at, literally, it's the first thing I do in the morning. I wake up and I look at this report to see how we did every day. And that gives me a pulse on the business. And by the way, all of these clinics are more than 500 miles away from where I live. I'm not there working, meaning I'm detached and not having a seizure about what's going on in the weeds every day. I'm looking at the high level data, and it's able to tell me, did we have a good day or not? I'll jump over to the right side of this report, Steve. I'm highlighting the net revenue and the payments. Yesterday we did 35,000 in revenue and 34,000 in payments. I know that is like a B minus day in our world. That's a B minus day. When we do about 42,000, I'd call that an A minus. If it's 45,000 or higher, that'd be an A plus. So 34,000, 35,000, I'm gonna call that a B minus. Why did that happen? Well, ultimately we didn't have enough appointments yesterday. Our conversion rates were good, but our appointments weren't. Our appointment counts are not where we would typically want them to be. Anyway, that's one report. Let me pause right there, Steve. I can't see you right now because I'm sharing my screen. Do you have any questions on this report, or is there anything that I should add before I go to a next report?
No, I love this. I think it's important for people to understand that while we're using industry knowledge, that we all use kind of the same. We might call it close rate or help rate. We call it help rate because that's really what we believe we're doing. But it's important in the beginning, the whole garbage in, garbage out thing is to recognize how many appointment types you have. How do you track appointments? How do you track close rate? Because people think that their close rate is 100%. Well, it's really not. When you include everybody that you paid to get into your office, we don't get to parse that out. So just maybe spend 90 seconds on the importance of starting with how are we going to define our data that we're going to use in this metrics table.
Yeah, and it is almost worth like its entire own webinar,
Hopefully.
just how do you measure things. But I like the 90-second reminder here. One of the things that you want to do, again, you want your measurements to be objective. The temperature is what the temperature is. Your oil pressure is what your oil pressure is. It's not but if sort of thing. So let's look at just the completed HCNPs. I'm again highlighting these middle three titles of the center three columns. The completed HCNPs would be our new patient appointment count, and then we've got net transactions from them, and then we've got a close rate. We do say the words help rate, like Steve said, in our internal world. This report goes out to many different businesses that subscribe to the Acuity Hearing Network, and close rate is a more universal sort of word that we leave on the report. I'm going to go down to the bottom and use the actual number totals. Yesterday, we had 13 hearing consultation new patients. These are people that mostly came from a referral from a current patient and they've never been to us before, or they came from direct mail or newspaper or something like that. We had 13 of them. 4 of those people said yes. Whether they bought 2 hearing aids or not, I don't know, but 4 people said yes for a close rate of 30.8. Okay. Now, of those 13, that's how many people came in the office and completed an appointment. I have zero idea whether they were plugged with wax or needed to be referred to a doctor for any reason. We don't filter that out. 13 people came in and 4 people said yes. It's very objective. It's uneditable. Did they come in? Yes or no? Did they move forward with treatment? Yes or no? And that's how we measure it. Now, the second part of that is it's measured the same way for everybody every day. Therefore, no one person can trick the system whether they work, game the system to make their close rate higher, which is how they would game it. They're not going to game it to make it lower. There's my 90-second pitch there, or
All right.
description, Steve.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to switch reports. This is maybe the most proprietary report that Acuity has. There's no one else measuring things like this in the industry. We've never seen it. We invented it, and this report alone, if I had to have one report, I probably would want this one. If I wanted a second report, it would be a P&L. We'll talk about P&Ls in just a second, though. This one we generate every week. And what it does, it's called the Active Customers Report. And it ultimately tells us the movement of patients within our clinics and within our business. So at the center of our purpose for existing is ear care for life. We're not here to sell hearing aids. We're not here to see how many widgets we can sell. I love metrics, by the way. I don't know how many units we sell. I don't know. I keep track of how many people we help. I keep track of how many people come through the door. I keep track of revenue and things, or we do. I'm saying me, I should say we, Acuity does. But units we don't measure. We're people interested, not units interested. Nevertheless, here's the active customer report. Again, I'm going to give the 90-second version of what does this report tell us. Well, on the left column, it starts with previous active customers. That means, at the end of last week, how many active customers did we have? Then it goes to inflow. How many new people did we bring in? Then outflow. How many people did we lose? How many people went from being active now to inactive? Recaptured is they used to be inactive and now we've got them back in. They hadn't been to see us for some time, over a year, and we got them to come back in. How many people died or moved out of our territory? And then that leaves us with our current active customers. And then the next column tells us as a count and a percentage how much we grew, which could be a negative, meaning we went backwards. We've got a couple of those here. That's not good. And then it's got some other metrics of our database reference. But at the end of the day, it tells us, are we growing? So if I go down to the total at the bottom, last week in our entire network, we added 7 people. Well, that's pretty cool. Kind of like the workflow report, it goes by week, then month. So over the past month, we've added 26 net people. In the quarter, 104. And for the year, 386. That's pretty good. It's like adding a full-time clinic to our work, and we didn't even open a new clinic. So that's fun. Anyway, this active customer report is so telling as to what's actually happening in the clinic. Remember, that's what we're talking about, entrepreneurial seizure, and using metrics and data, objective tools to help us ultimately analyze what's going on and get us back on track to having our engine, having our machine run healthy. And telling you, this report is so good at doing it. Let me think of an example of how it could be contradictory. Well, okay, you've got a clinic that is kind of, let's call them just normal. They're a normal clinic, good PCC, got a good clinician, and the clinician decides, well, they want to start retiring. Okay, well, we're going to let you work 4 days a week now. And they're working 4 days a week, and they maintain sales okay, but we're measuring our active customer report, and we see all of a sudden our active customers goes negative. We're starting to lose people. Our wait time in the clinic goes up. What's going on? Well, it's because we cut our clinic days by 20%. You could almost count on your active customer going down by 20% because you just don't have the bandwidth in order to see them anymore. And so that would help you make the decision. We need to add clinic days. This person can retire, but we need to bring back clinic days through a new trainee, another clinician that's ultimately their successor, or whatever it might be, to bring them back up. That's just one, again, kind of general example of active customers and how it might be affected by changes that happen in the office. But being able to measure it and actually see that dip in active customers, like when we show this report to clinics and they see if they have a negative, they all of a sudden become very interested in how can they improve it? What do we need to do? Can we get a list of those people? And you get a lot of buy-in on what needs to be done in order to go to work to improve that metric and get back on track. Again, let me throw this back, that our BHAG that we express to our clinics is through active customers. So there's a direct attachment to that vision and the action and the metric that this tells us if we're growing or shrinking. And if we're shrinking, what do we need to do to get back on track to build it up?
I think that's really such a good point. I've, again, going back through my career, there's a lot of people that might have these metrics and they just sit in their office and they look at them, things are good, things are bad. Well, we know if things are good or things are bad. You can look at kind of the bank balance and see how things are going. The leadership piece of working on your business instead of in your business is getting your team aligned with all of these goals, because the idea is not for you just to, I know, Kate, you wake up and you look at it because you're running the business, but the team is also waking up and looking at these numbers. And over time, the reason we call it a 7-year march is because you're training everybody to think about the business in the same way. That is scalability. That's how you can leave your business and it still thrives without you.
Yeah. Yep. I like that a lot. Can I show this third and final tool, Steve?
You get to do whatever you want, Cade.
I'm going to do whatever I want, Steve. I'm going to show this tool.
All right.
Okay. So this is another, it's a tool. We call it the clinic optimization tool. Think of, if you're a business owner, a manager, supervisor, you're like the mechanic and you got a tool bag full of tools or a garage full of tools and you carry them around. You don't need all the tools all the time, but you never know when you might need the tools. And so this is one of them, clinic optimization tool, and it helps us analyze even further into some specialty metrics. I've got it up on the workflow calculator. I'm going to show 3 sheets on this. And again, these are the 90-second versions. We could do an actual webinar on each one of these sheets or each one of these tools for an entire hour. But here's the 90-second version of each of these 3 sheets. This workflow calculator, it is using the data from that workflow report that I showed earlier, and you enter the numbers into these yellow cells, and it ultimately tells you, it comes out to be the revenue that you're generating. This will be your actual. And then you can change the numbers to see what kind of effect you would get if you were to successfully adjust the, tune your engine. So let's say, for example, what I've got it put into this right here is the same amount of appointments. And the only thing that changed, is that our close rate went from 21.8 to 25. Little side note, I've learned and observed quite often that people will see 21.8 and 25 and they'll say, oh, that's about the same. No, it's not. It's not about the same. Let's go down to the bottom. 472,000 to 509,000. That is not the same. That is a pickup truck, kind of difference. It's not the same. The difference in profitability in these 2 clinics is vastly different. And we didn't change anything as far as the total appointments in the office. Maybe our marketing needs to expand and we get 250 new patient consultations and we maintain a 25% close rate. And all of a sudden we're over $100,000 improved over our original circumstance. The actual feel in the office is less than a patient a day, and the effect and feel of the improvement on the close rate is 1 extra person per 20 people. It's like, it's not drastic in the kind of changes. Okay, there's the 90 seconds on that. Let's go to the provider days calculator. This is a specialty tool that we've built that takes metrics from lots of different reports, and it ultimately tells us how many appointments per day are we seeing in our clinics. This column E right here is my favorite number on this entire page. So you enter how many days a week that clinic is open or how many clinician days it has in column B. You enter how many appointments they saw within that time frame, which is the month. And then it tells you how many they saw per week and how many they saw per day. And then you get a total of your company down at the bottom. So in the month of January, we averaged 9 appointments per day. We averaged 8 in February, 7 in March. What? So we've averaged 8 for the entire year. I'll tell some, open the hood even further. We actually set a quarterly MIT based on this after we measured for an entire year, and we were averaging 6 appointments. So I am actually glad to see that our average appointment per day is going up to even 8. That's a significant improvement. I can almost guarantee it. Yes, Steve.
Give me a 10-second explanation. What is an MIT?
MIT stands for most important thing. It's a quarterly contest theme, all hands in, that we commit to learning a new skill or reviving an old one and reminding ourselves, building the muscle to live into best practice in whatever that theme is for the quarter. So we set a quarterly contest or charge to improve our appointments per day. And I was going to say, Steve, I guarantee you that if you're watching or listening in to this webinar, your clinics are not as busy as they think they are. I can remember when I was a young regional manager and I would go into a clinic and I'd say, how's it going? Whatever you say to them. You guys busy? Oh yeah, we're so busy. They're like, whoo, we are so busy. We couldn't be more busy. And then you measure how many appointments per day they're seeing, and they're seeing 4 appointments a day. You go to the next clinic. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? You guys busy? We are so busy. The same expression, the same exact perception and expression of how busy they are. You measure how busy they are. They're seeing 12 appointments a day. The perspectives of how busy they are the same, but the actuality is different. And a tool like this helps you measure and then be able to adjust. We've adjusted so many clinics based on how many appointments per day they're seeing. You're able to take clinic days away and put them somewhere else that could use them, or whatever adjustments you need to make. That metric is an absolute unit. It's I'm just meaning it's powerful. It's on telling you the health of your clinic or of your business. I'm going to switch to the third and final view on this sheet. This is a profit calculator. You can take your P&L out of your QuickBooks or whatever your accounting program is. You can plug it in here. You can plug in all of your costs, your personnel cost, and your different spends on whatever it is, all the expenses that it takes to run a business. And then this sheet is built. It's going to show us in an annual view what amount of revenue do I need in order to hit the different profit. What revenue do I need in order to break even at 0 profit? Well, 5 million based on the cost that I've got plugged in here. If I want 10%, I need to do 5.57 million. If I want to do 20% profitability, 6.28 million basically. And again, if I'm stuck in my business, I'm in a seizure, Steve, my profits are thin, all I've done is created a job for myself, and it's not even a good one. And I need to get financially healthy, cash flow healthy. This tool helps determine how we need to manipulate the business in order to get that profit back correctly so that we can be healthy. Acuity likes running at 20% plus profitability. Isn't that nice? I mean, look at that, 6.2 million 1.25 million in net profit. That allows you to take pay as an owner appropriately on your investment and be able to reinvest in the business, like you said earlier, Steve. I'm going to stop sharing.
We're going to land this plane. And let's see here. I'm going to start sharing. Cade, as soon as this comes up, thank you so much for that explanation. I want to I want to add just maybe a couple of things in closing. We just shared a lot of metrics with you. If metrics don't drive action, they're useless. So often in our business, people think that to solve their problem, they just need better marketing. I just need to sell more hearing aids. We think that you need to step back and manage your business, manage your active patients, and so many of these areas that Cade talked about. How do you increase your close rate from 21 to 25? Well, you don't just say, well, go sell better. We actually have tools that we can help people with their help rate. You might take a look at it and say, well, we're seeing 6 patients a day, and we don't have time to see more. And you might be right. And the answer might be, well, we have to scale back the time it takes for an appointment. We're taking 2 hours for this, and we should be taking 60 minutes. Or we might say you need to close more service visit patients. Well, we don't say, well, go close service patient visits better. No, we actually say, are we doing objective measurements every time we see a patient to make sure that they're hearing the best they possibly can? Are we driving action to a strong recommendation? These metrics aren't just to look and see what's happening. These metrics are in order to drive specific changes in the way we do things. I wanted to say that. Cade, do you have anything to add quickly?
Well, you can't, if you want to manage it, you got to measure it. That's what you're saying. If you want to manage it, you got to measure it. The measurements help us break out of the entrepreneurial seizure. They give us an unemotional, objective view of what's actually happening. It's looking at the gauges of our dashboard, and you got to have that, and then you can move forward and get out of that entrepreneurial seizure and not have the business owning you.
Love it. Sarah, did we get any questions? I'm looking for Sarah.
Hey, Steve, it's Sarah.
Hi.
We don't have any questions in the chat, but I know some people joined late, so they might not have heard that was an option.
Okay. I'd like to re-invite people. If you have a question, just throw it in the chat. If not, I'm probably going to answer one of the questions. So what are we trying to do at Acuity? Well, we'd like to come alongside you and help in any way we can. You can look at these 5 areas, and I'm trying to explain, what's in it for Acuity. Well, we'd like for you to hire us. We can be a full-time or a part-time employee, and we can help you in the areas of patient care, marketing, financial control, administration, and leadership. One or all of those areas, and each one of those areas is affordable. But if what you'd like is a strategic partner that can come in, you just hire us at a fair rate, not as a full-time employee. You don't buy your hearing aids through us. There's none of that. It's just I'd love to have that chat with you on how we can work together. What we'd like initially is a day and a half of your time. Either you come to us or we can come to you. We charge $2,500 for that initial visit plus expenses. If you come to us, that's typically a trip to Austin, where That's easy for me to get to. That's easy for Cade to get to, and Randy's. It's super easy for Randy to get there because we usually meet at his house. We will waive that $2,500 fee for anybody that's that contacts us as a result of this webinar. Anyway, that's our big call to action. We just like to get together with you. We say it often. Let's just hang out and see if it makes sense to work together. It will reveal itself as to whether or not that's a good idea fairly quickly. This is not. We're not looking to work with everybody. We're looking to work with people that believe how we believe and want to get where we think that their business could take them. Kay, do you have anything to add in closing?
Steve, just thankful for the chat today and to be able to share. Thankful for the people that took time out of their day to have a listen and hang out with us. We like playing ball, and it just means a lot that people are interested in listening and being a part of it. Thankful for our team that's here participating along with us. Thank you guys. I see you signed in. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good Memorial Day weekend, and that's what I got, Steve.
Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Have a great weekend. Call me if you need me, 214-215-7849. Thanks, everybody. Bye.